YouTube video for a game that has kind of gone away and kind of hasn't. It's one of those games that people always look back fondly, but time seems to pass it on, and that is the game Guild Wars. Guild Wars 1, the original, released in 2005 for the PC, and was a very unique game during its time. And one thing that's been very interesting is that it's not been really done like it's since. There has not been a game like Guild Wars 1 that has come out. Of course, there's the sequel, Guild Wars 2, and it's a very good game. It's got a lot of accolades. But one thing about Guild Wars 2, though, is that it is so different from Guild Wars 1. It is a completely different animal. The gameplay is completely different. And they did this, they being ArenaNet, owned by the Korean company NC Soft. They did that on purpose. That was not by accident. And they came out with the idea of breaking the Holy Trinity. That is being tank, DPS, and healing. And they really wanted to break it, and I think they got a little too overly focused on it in trying to break it. Now, Guild Wars 1, as we're seeing here, with my Elementalist inside the Kinetic Center in the continent of Cantha, it more adhered to what you would call the traditional setup of tank, healer, and DPS, but only nominally. I would not say that it was hard and fast, because there were several other professions which really changed things up. And so it wasn't just strictly tank, DPS, and support, although there were a lot of groups that ran with that idea. They usually had a tough time trying to get the game in doing it, because a lot of the other classes, Necromancer, Mesmer, Ranger, Assassin, Ritualist, Paragon, and Dervish, and also the variations of other classes, like the Monk could be a smiting monk. It could actually be kind of like a DPS nuker, and a pretty effective one at that. These put a lot more variations on the theme than just the traditional DPS, tank, and nuker, the Holy Trinity setup that everyone is familiar with. Originally started, I won't say originally started with World of Warcraft, but definitely kind of solidified it inside the MMO genre. So ArenaSoft, they actually kind of succeeded in my mind with Guild Wars 1, and without even quite realizing it. I think the real controversy came with the Monk class. The Monk class was the traditional healer class, and everyone in trying to run content or to do PvP always saw the Monk as just a healer, when it wasn't just that. They had a lot of protection spells, they had a lot of smiting spells. Anyone else could become a healer. Elementalists could be good healers with their large pool, and Necromancers could be good healers. Mesmers could be good healers with their fast casting. There's a lot of interesting things they could do with the healer. And that was mostly because of the fact that the Monk class wasn't restricted to one particular individual. Because in Guild Wars 1, you could have a secondary profession. So, as I mentioned, the large mana pool of the Elementalist, it could be an Elementalist Monk, and use all the Monk healing skills without actually having to be a monk, essentially, or augment their Elementalist skills, their fire, their earth, water skills, high DPS skills with just some monk skills as well. So it didn't have to always be down to one individual one class, even though the monks did have the advantage of divine favor, which means they got a nice little bonus with it. So they were the best at doing it, but there was no hard and fast rule saying that they should do it. And I think for a lot of players that played Guild Wars, they got kind of stuck in that mentality that there's one dedicated healer. Not saying that wasn't ineffective, but it wasn't the only way to do things. So Guild Wars is a game, as I had mentioned before, has not been done since. Again, there's 8 skills at the bottom, and they can be put into an almost infinite number of ways between the 10 classes of Guild Wars, and that has not been something I've seen since. It is definitely not something in Guild Wars 2. In Guild Wars 2, it's all dependent on the weapon that you're carrying, and you can only carry 2 of them, so there's still quite a bit of variation in Guild Wars 2, but I don't see the ability to experiment in Guild Wars 2 that you can in Guild Wars 1. Guild Wars 1, for me, was really exciting because of the amount of experimentation. I mean, to give one idea, I had a mesmer, I had an illusion weapon mesmer, close up, with a sword, lady in a dress, like a ball gown dress with a sword, that had a secondary profession of a ranger, so she had a pet with her as well, and I used, I forgot the skill's name, it was like Tiger's Rage or something like that, which was like the same as the Warrior's Fury, but didn't have some of the drawbacks, and I had a pet, so that was an interesting build I always ran with inside the random arenas because it was something really unique. I mean, here you have a woman in an evening gown with the sword slashing away with a tiger, pouncing on top of someone. That is really neat, and that's not something you're going to see in Guild Wars 2 or any other game for that matter. At least not to the extent that you can with Guild Wars 1. So I've been coming back, and last 4 or 5 days have really gotten into Guild Wars 1 again. Running an Elementalist, which was not one of my main classes before. Before I had a fully, fleshed out Necromancer, Mesmer, and a Monk, but I didn't touch any of the other classes as much. I had not run through the content as much because, frankly, I'd actually gotten bored. This was around 2005, 2006. It was right before Factions came out, and there was a full year between the initial release of Guild Wars, now known as Guild Wars Prophecies, and Guild Wars The Factions second campaign. That was a long time to wait, and I had burned through all the content. I had done a lot of PvP, which kept me going for a long time, but when Factions came out, I kind of saw more of the same, and I was kind of burned out by that point. And then went to another MMORPG, which was even more time-consuming, called EVE Online. So that was that took out several years of my life right there, and that's a topic for another video. But it's been great to come back to Guild Wars and really experience it again. And there's been a lot of discussion in the community. How dead is Guild Wars 1? Because it is almost a 10-year-old game at this point. And people have moved on. They've moved on to Guild Wars 2, or they've moved on to other MMORPGs that are more advanced. Star Wars: The Old Republic is another example, etc., etc. But it's easy to come back to Guild Wars, frankly, because there's not been a game like it since. So in many cases, there is no sequel to Guild Wars, not in the way that we know it, even though thematically there is. And I think it's still a great time to come back and see if it can be rejuvenated a little bit, see if there's a reunion available that can get people involved again and enjoy the gameplay, because that's been something that's been clear in the message boards. A lot of people have so many fond memories of Guild Wars 1, as do I, and never really saw it come together in Guild Wars 2. Now, Guild Wars 2 has a lot of advantages to it. This is not to put down Guild Wars 2. The dynamic environments in Guild Wars 2 are second to none. And that's not an experience you're going to find in Guild Wars 1. Guild Wars 1 is a different animal. But if you like the dynamic environments, which is really neat in Guild Wars 2, and kind of the more MMO feel of it, then go for it. It does it very, very well. It is highly commended. But if you're looking for that dungeon crawler experience, like Guild Wars 1, and the large range of experimentation that's available that you could do in Guild Wars 1, you're only going to find it in Guild Wars 1, and not really in any other game that I have seen on the market. And I've tried, I've not tried everything, but I've tried a little bit of World of Warcraft, although I couldn't really get into it. But Conan, Age of Hyperion, and Star Wars: The Old Republic was another one, and there were a few others, and Guild Wars 2, of course. I've been trying that as well, but nothing can replace Guild Wars 1. Unless Arena actually makes a real honest to goodness sequel to Guild Wars 1 that uses the Guild Wars 1 gameplay mechanics, which I don't think we're going to see, but you never know. If there's still a large audience and still large interest, and they're still making money, and that's what it's all about. It's about making money for a company, and that's okay. That's the way it should be. Then Guild Wars 1 may not be dead. But again, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what the environment is, what the community is. Do they actually disappear? Do we all disappear and just forget about it, or do we keep it going? Or they may, they've actually, they being ArenaNet, they've actually did a big favor already by not shutting down the servers, and that's big kudos to them. Although of course we would like to see more improvements. I think a new graphics Coda Paint could really go a long ways, and could actually make a good business case, because I think people would be willing to upgrade the graphics to much more modern standard levels than what we saw 10 years ago. Although the graphics 10 years ago were not bad, they could definitely use an update. And that's something that could be packaged and sold, as an enhanced package. Enhance your character or enhance your environments, and enhance the spell effects. So you never know. Anyways, that's my kind of discussion for this week. I hope to do some more. Again, this is my first video. Hopefully it comes out well, and there's some good feedback, good responses. If there is, then I'll do more and really see if I can dive into more Guild Wars for you. So take it easy, guys, and out.